NBA playoffs time. It is Ninja here with John Henson and with Christopher Walder. Let's go to the West. Let's talk Lakers and Wolves, what I think might be a sneaky good series. Of course, it is Luka's first foray into the playoffs with LA. Hit that thumbs up button, hit that like button, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We will be locked in throughout the NBA playoffs. Lakers are the faves here in series betting markets, minus 196. The Wolves come back at around plus 160, plus 164. In terms of the spread, there you see the numbers from FanDuel. The Lakers, minus 1.5 faves here in the spread, around plus 112, plus 118. Total games at 5.5. The over at FanDuel at minus 154. Season series knotted up at 2 games apiece. The home team won all games. Lakers did win the only meeting after Luka arrived. But, John, let me start with you. Because when I look at this series, I think that this Minnesota team is a tough matchup. So do you agree? Do you think that this Wolves team is going to be a bit of a threat to the Lakers, and maybe as much as there is in the West? I feel like they have a ton of defensive upside that can disrupt what the Lakers want to do with Luka, with LeBron, with Reeves, etc. Do you think that Minnesota is going to be a handful here for the Lakers?
For sure. It's not often, you're a 3 seed, getting a team that's top 8 in offensive and defensive efficiency. So this is going to be a barn burner. You see it with the series prices. It's juiced to the Timberwolves. Everything is juiced towards the Timberwolves to kind of make this a series. So you got Anthony Edwards, who obviously can take over a series, but you did Luka on the other side. But you saw what Ant did last year in the playoffs. You saw how well he played, how he willed his team to win these games. The Lakers have a lot on their hands, and I don't think you've seen peak Minnesota yet, right? This is a team, they had a lull. They're a new team with Randall. But nonetheless, when you're watching Minnesota Timberwolves play, you can see what they can be and what they are, and that's a team that I'd be scared to play if I'm a Luka Lakers team. So it's going to be interesting.
Do you think, John, that this Ant Edwards narrative about not wanting to be the face of the NBA, do you think that maybe goes against him, or do you think he puts that to the back burner so he can just focus on business at hand as a player?
I think he's not worried about being the face of the NBA because he's on a supermax deal with a new shoe deal. So the face is just going to come with what, he's just trying to maybe deflect, which is what you're supposed to do as a star player, deflect and, hey, look, I'm just here for my team. But Ant's a guy that can literally take over a game. And if Minnesota can steal a few games and put a pressure on the Lakers, and JJ being a first-year coach and Luka kind of wanted to prove that trade was worth it and, prove himself right, that's not the guy I'd want to be playing against. I'll tell you that.
Chris, Luka averaged 32.5 points, 9.6 boards, and 8.2 assists per game in the Western Conference Finals against Minnesota last season and won it in 5 games. Are you expecting similar output, similar domination here from Luka in his first playoff series in purple and gold?
Also, just quickly to go to John's point here about, he was talking about how close these two teams were in the standings. Only 1 game separated Minnesota and the Los Angeles Lakers. If it wasn't for the final couple of days of the regular season, this matchup could look entirely different on paper in terms of home court advantage, or even just the team that each of these teams are ultimately playing against. So I just kind of want to put that in mind as well. But to answer your question about Luka Doncic, yeah, he had absurd numbers in the Western Conference Finals against the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think the difference now is that maybe a little bit less is being expected of him. I think the skill sets that a 40-year-old LeBron James brings to the table, along with maybe on a lesser degree Austin Reeves, those two of his teammates are capable of producing gargantuan numbers any game of this series. But I think Minnesota especially is going to try and pinpoint Doncic specifically, because if you take him out of the equation, that puts more pressure on an aging James, who is still recovering from some of those injuries that took him out of action over the last couple of months. I don't think he enters this series at 100%. We all know what Doncic is capable of. He could drop 50, a triple-double at any given moment, and I think that's why Minnesota is going to try and attack him more so than the other two players. He's the head of the table at this point. He is number one on the depth chart, even ahead of LeBron James. I think he's still going to get his numbers, but don't be surprised if they're a little bit less than what he accomplished in that conference finals.
I want to finish off here talking about, what you guys are looking at betting for the series, what you guys are looking at maybe betting for player props. But before that, give me a potential series X factor here, both of you guys. And it can be, a player. It can be, X's and O's. It can be any factor of the game. And John Henson, I'll start with you. What do you think is an element or player in this series that could be an X factor?
I'm going to have to go Austin Reeves, Mr. highly debated third option. Is he better than the best third option in the league? It's time to show. Time to put up or shut up. If Austin Reeves can be that guy, which he has proven, he averaged 20 points a game. Sneaky when you compare his stats to guys like Jaylen Brown, he's sneaky, like really how he's played so well in that third position. Obviously Jaylen Brown's a second option, but his stats are fairly similar on a team that's just one seed off in the West. So it's an interesting debate, but he is the X factor. They will go as far as Austin Reeves can help buoy them because we know what LeBron and Luka are going to do, the attention they bring to the table. Can the Lakers have a third guy to put them over the top? I think Austin Reeves is the X factor for the whole playoffs for them.
Yeah, just with that star power, he still sort of slides under the radar, as good as he is. Chris Walder, what about you? What could be a series X factor in your opinion here?
Well, for Minnesota's sake, I think it has to be Rudy Gobert. Gobert, in 3 appearances this season against the Lakers, he averaged a double-double of 14 points and 13 rebounds. But keep in mind, and you alluded to this earlier, Ninja, those 3 games that he competed against were the Anthony Davis era of the Los Angeles Lakers. Luka Doncic was not around at that one time that they did play following that blockbuster trade. Gobert was not in the lineup, so we don't know what he's capable of in this specific matchup. And we can all agree that JJ Redick, the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, is one of the smartest minds in all of basketball. And he's going to try and put his team in situations to get someone of Gobert's stature off the floor, whether that's putting someone like Dorian Finney-Smith at the 5 spot. You could even see some minutes of LeBron James playing center as well. The problem is that the first thing that coaches try to do to counteract that is say, hey, well, if they're going small, we have to go small as well. And maybe Chris Finch elects to take Gobert out of the equation and maybe sit him more often than not. But if you can keep Gobert out on the floor, multiple-time defensive player of the year, the stifle tower that he is, a shot blocker, no one on the Lakers can really counteract that. I really do hope that Minnesota can find a way to keep him in the lineup because I think he can be a difference maker, especially defensively and especially on the glass. The Lakers don't have a big body to really throw at him.
Talk to me now about potentially betting player props in this series. There's star power plentiful here in this series between these two teams with, LeBron and Luka and Ant, et cetera, et cetera. But John Henson, any players, catching your attention that you might be looking at betting for player prop markets here?
I saw 2 that intrigued me. Luka, most total points at plus 125. And then one that's maybe I like a little more, an Ant to make the most threes in the series. The only reason why I don't love both of them is because both of them exist, right? Either one could go off and then change that complexion of the series or that bet that you have. But I'm going to say Luka most total points, is something to look at because he is trying to prove himself. He is on a mission. Dallas shipped him away, right? Listen, guys, if Dallas shipped Luka away, I don't care. Nobody's safe, whether you work in HR, whether you work in the Starbucks barista, nobody's safe, right? So I think Luka's going to be out there to prove a mission, and Ant's going to shoot as many threes as possible, as he's done for the last couple of years.
And Chris, how about you? Player props, anything, at the back of your mind here?
Yeah, unlike my good friend John Henson here, I try to stay clear of total props for a best of 7 series because sometimes when poo-poo hits the fan and someone gets hurt, some of those bets turn out to be really horrible, and it's not through no fault of anyone. Injuries occur. It's out of everyone's control. So that's why I like to go on a game-by-game basis. And something that I've been monitoring over the course of the regular season is kind of what John hinted at, which is the 3-pointers made for Anthony Edwards. I mean, if you look at his numbers from last season to this season, the jump is like insane the way that he's just chalking it up from 3-point range. His makes jumped from 2.7 last season to 4.1 this year, and his attempts skyrocketed from 6.7 to 10.3. Finished with 320 makes, became one of those rare players to finish with at least 300 triples over the course of the regular season. He finished with he finished the season with 4 or more triples in 7 of his last 9 games, but finished with 2 or fewer in 3 of his 4 outings this year against the Los Angeles Lakers. So he has struggled shooting the rock against LA in those limited matchups. I am going to be leaning the under more often than not. I know he is going to probably average between 8 and 10 3-pointers per game, but his efficiency has dipped specifically against the Lakers. And I think JJ Redick is well aware of that fact, and they are going to try and make him go to the basket, maybe become more of a spot-up shooter off the dribble, something that he isn't necessarily akin to. He has fallen in love with the 3-point shot. So I'm curious how those numbers are going to shape up, but I would go under more often than not.
Might be an interesting approach then, if JJ does sort of challenge and throw all your resources at him and force the rest of the T-Wolves to get theirs. Naz Reid might be a guy that could, again, this season be a guy to target in player props. But let's finish it off here with sort of series betting, series prices, spreads, total games, whatever. What are you guys eyeballing here to bet for this series between the Wolves and the Lakers? And John Henson, I'll start with you.
Oh, by the way, Naz Reid was a money machine last year for the playoff props, so keep an eye on him. I'm going to probably stay away because the value is on the Timberwolves, but they're also juiced up a little bit higher than I'd want to take. So I'd probably stay away from these series prices because I don't really want to bet a plus money bet on the Lakers. And then I don't want to pay minus 144, minus 154 for the over. So I'm staying away.
Chris Walder, how about you?
Well, I shy away from nothing, my friends. I go all in head first, whether it backfires on me or not. I am taking the LA Lakers to win this series in 6 games. 6 games seems like just like the default pick for most best of 7 series. You don't want to kind of isolate one team and say, yeah, you don't have a chance. You'd be lucky to win 1 game. But I do think that this series does go 6. I could see it being 2-2 after 4 games before LA wins 5 and then 6 on the road. I've got this at plus 520 value. 3 of the 4 best players in this series are on the Los Angeles Lakers. It depends ultimately on how much value you put on Austin Reeves. If you think he is superior to Rudy Gobert and Julius Randle, who we haven't even talked about on this show, Randle has struggled shooting in the playoffs for his career in the limited action that he's seen. So keep an eye on his numbers as well. But like we've said, Minnesota top 8 in both offensive and defensive efficiency. But at the same time, that absence of Karl Anthony Towns, he was their second most important player on that trip to the Western Conference Finals last year. And that's a lot of points that need to be accounted for. So much is going to be asked of Anthony Edwards in this series, who averaged 27.6 points during this season. He is going to take a lot of 3-pointers, which I talked about earlier in the program here. But this really shouldn't be a sweep. I think Minnesota will have a couple of games where their size is advantageous to them, and they don't have to bench a Randle, a Reed, or a Rudy Gobert to compensate for the lineups that the Los Angeles Lakers throw at them. But 6 games feels right to me, and the Lakers will move on to the second round.